lucky that the electricity came on time, at least. Okay, so without wasting our time, with 10-15 minutes, um, what was going on in the class?
Ma'am, revision questions of triumph of surgery.
Yeah. So, have you gone through the chapter? Did you find any issue with that?
No, ma'am.
No. Okay. So let's go with the leftover questions that we couldn't discuss yesterday, and then, if possible, we'll go with the second chapter of this book, that is a thief story. Okay. Screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So let us go with the discussion. So we had started this first these questions. Let me know, children. We started.
Yes, ma'am. We have to start from question number 4.
Question number 4. Okay. So this chapter, that is a triumph of surgery, we came to know about that how sometime over pampering and over indulgence spoils a person, and here how it has spoiled Tricky the dog, and Mr. Pumphrey, the owner, she just pour down her extra concern, and she pampered the dog, and as a result, Tricky was obese. Tricky had to suffer a lot, and finally he had to visit a vet, that is the veterinary doctor. Now let's go with what we say. Question number 4. How can you say that it was hard for Mrs. Pumphrey to part with her doting pet? Yeah, doting pet refers to Tricky. So you have to give certain references from the chapter. Okay. So just a second here. I will call out the names because there are so many students. Yesterday I was analyzing to give the internal marks, and I found there are so many students who got 0. And how now think of if I send just 0 marks, will not help you out. Okay. For example, Akshat Arora never replied in the class. Is he there in the meeting? I'll not call out your
Yes,
name
ma'am.
twice. Meeting, yeah, he is there. Akshat Arora, if interested, let me know. Unmute and give me the answer. No problem. Akshat 0. Next, I'm having Avni Jain. Avni Jain. No problem. See, at least now the entire class is listening why ma'am is giving 0 in their internal assessment. Okay, Avni, no problem. Next, Aryan Gera. Aryan Gera. No problem.
Ma'am, not in the meeting.
No okay, Aryan Gera not in the meeting. Absent. Then this is Ashwin Saxena. Ashwin Saxena. No problem. At least everybody should know why I'm giving 0. Bhavika Mishra. Bhavika Mishra.
Not in the meeting.
Okay. Chehak Gupta. Chehak Gupta. No problem. You guys will be responsible for getting zero in your internal assessment. Don't worry. I hope everybody has gone through today's newspaper, okay, and came to know that how the internal assessment marks will be. If not, I will share you that newspaper clip. Go through. CBSE has released.
Excuse
Uh,
me, ma'am.
yes, who's that?
Ma'am, can't see the screen.
I read the question for you. The question is, how can you say that it was hard for Mrs. Pumphrey to part with her doting pet? That is tricky. Means, how can you say that it was difficult for Mrs. Pumphrey to part with Tricky? Leave it. Yeah, Harshit Jain. Oh, sorry, Harshit. Harshit.
Ma'am, he is in the meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, pick up. How can you say that it was hard for Mrs. Pumphrey to part with her doting pet? Kashish
मैम
Gaur.
नहीं मैम
Kashish Gaur.
मैम
Not in
बताऊं
the meeting.
Not in the
मैम
meeting.
Ma'am, he is speaking the answer.
Who? Kashish?
हेलो मैम हर्षित
Acha, Harshit. Yeah, Harshit, bolo.
मैम because she was emotionally attached with her pet, she could not let her pet go away.
Harshit, try to understand the question, bete. How can you say that it was hard for Mrs. Pumphrey to part with her doting pet? So you have to give certain instance from the story. You have to give some references from the story. Those moments when Mrs. Pumphrey was really um, expressing her grief. As a reader, we can see that it was difficult for her. Keshav Garg.
Yes, ma'am. How can you say that it was hard for Mrs. Pumphrey to part with her doting pet? Ma'am, answer. Mrs. Pumphrey treated Tricky as her own child.
Hmm.
She loved him very much. It was very difficult for her to see Tricky in such a situation. She was distraught when she had to make the decision to hospitalize Tricky. Um, for her, for her, for her love for him knew no bounds. It was a terrible and tearful moment for her, but she agreed to Herriot's suggestion for the betterment of her.
Answer is correct, Keshav, but may I know from which site you are giving the answer? Because section A and B had also given me the same answer. We are not fools over here. Word to word same. We are discussing, it doesn't mean that you will read out the answer. I want your constructed answer, dear. This is ridiculous. ये तो कोई भी you are just finding out the NCERT solution. These are NCERT questions. And intentionally, I kept those NCERT questions I didn't discuss when I taught the chapter. The reason I kept it for revision classes. Or revision classes also, you are finding out the answer from Google. Will it help you, children? I'm not going to hang you. At least let it be wrong, but you speak and frame your answer by yourself. Don't think ma'am is not saying means ma'am doesn't understand what is going on. I know everyone's standard. I know everyone, how many of you can give me the answer and how many of you are simply reading from Google. I will not consider those answers. Sorry, Keshav. You spoke, I appreciate for that. But you read the answer from a particular site, I do not. Sorry. Okay, next is Neil Agarwal. Neil, your response is also not as expected. Neil Agarwal.
Yes, ma'am.
Please try better. This is question number 5. Sorry, 4.
How can you say that it was hard for Mrs. Pumphrey to part with a dotting pet? Ma'am, when the news when the news came of Tricky that he was uh, he was hospitalized and was not in a good condition, so it was very difficult for the Mrs. Pumphrey to leave him alone in the hospital. She treated her she treated Tricky as her own child. She treated Tricky her as her own child and provided her everything that he wanted as she was a rich young as she was a rich young lady and over pampered her. She loved Tricky very much and
Your answer is bit elaborated one. No problem, means you tried. I appreciate. And answer is almost correct. Okay, I'll give marks to you. Don't worry. Okay, so moving to the same question, how can you say that it was hard for Mrs. Pumphrey to part with her dotted pet? There are certain incidents from the story which highlights that how and it was difficult moment for Mrs. Pumphrey to part with her dotting pet. She was she considered Tricky her own child. She treat him to be her own child. All the requirements, what we say, foodings, everything was provided to Tricky, and what we say, if you consider the day when Mrs. Pumphrey was informed that Ricky was supposed to be admitted in a surgery in a hospital for his betterment, it became very much difficult for Mrs. Pumphrey to part. She was not able to accept this, but it was because of Tricky's well-being, she decided to keep Tricky to the hospital for 2 weeks. In addition to it, if you do remember, it was very sad, what we say, sorrowful and tearful moment for Mrs. Pumphrey to part with Tricky. She had a call at the surgery to be updated about to keep the update of Tricky's health. Okay, and how difficult how difficult the situation was. Narrate that situation, that she was the entire households housemates and Mrs. Pumphrey, they were shedding tears, they were expressing their sorrow, they were not ready to accept this. It was very difficult for them, sorrowful moment. So all these things are somewhere highlighting that how it became difficult for Mrs. Pumphrey being to part with the dotting pet. Okay. Moreover, answer will vary. The theme will remain the same. Yes.
Ma'am, can we include that she when Tricky was in the Herriot's clinic, she always came and paid a visit to Tricky.
She paid a visit or she made a call.
Ma'am, she
She
made
made
up.
calls and gave a continuous supply of brandy, wine, and what we say egg. Means in the veterinary also,
Yes,
in
ma'am.
the surgery also, she was finding out reasons to be connected to the dog.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Anybody else would like to add on with this answer? Give some add on or happy with the answer? You can write it yourself. See, I am not asking you children that I need properly constructed sentences, but at least those points frame yourself. Do not give me any answer from the particular site. I know from where are you giving. An NCRT solution is available everywhere. So please don't try to cheat your teacher. You are cheating yourself. Next, we are moving to question number 5. What kind of treatment was given to Tricky? Did it help in his recovery? Niharika, is she there in the meeting? Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
yes, Niharika. The question is very simple. What kind of treatment was given to Tricky? Did it help in his recovery? Yes, yes, Niharika. Okay, Niyati, Niyati. Yes, Chandra. Those names which are being called in the names being called in the class, mind it. It means more than half of the session, but still zero in the internal assessment. Now think of. Yes, Chandra. No response.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Question number 5, dear. What kind of treatment was given to Tricky? Did it help in his recovery? If you give the answer, 5 marks in your pocket.
Yes, ma'am. Giving.
Yeah, try.
Ma'am, the James Herriot was a kind and a gentle doctor.
Hmm.
He kept Tricky on a strict diet, so he could not again uh, did not destroy his health as earlier. He strictly the Dr. James Herriot strictly refused Mrs. Pumphrey for do not give him food out of diets, so his health should be maintained.
Okay. At least you spoke up, and no problem. Though it was not exactly the satisfactory answer, but I appreciate you spoke at least in the class. So, what kind of treatment was given to Tricky? Did it help in his recovery? Tanmay Rawat, Tanmay Rawat, Urvashi Chaudhary, Naman Singhal, Anshika, Prince Kumar. Okay. So these are the students who got zero till today, till date. Now we can go with a general discussion. So those students who can give me the answer, they can unmute and can tell me the answer. Okay. So just simply, I wanted to inform them what is going on. So what kind of treatment was given to Tricky? Did it help in his recovery? Aditya Kumar.
Um, uh, Dr. James Herriot treated Tricky in a very interesting way. Uh, Tricky became very lethargic and fat. So James Herriot decided to not give him any food for the first 2 days, and he fed him only on water and other liquids. On the third day, uh, when James saw some improvement in Tricky's health, he kept a bowl of food for Tricky along with his other pet dogs, and he was happy to see that Tricky rushed to his bowl to fight for food. For the first 2 days, Tricky just licked the leftover food which was left by James' pet dogs in the bowl. Uh, uh, when uh, when Mrs. Pumphrey sent many gifts for Tricky like wine, brandy, eggs, etc., he did not feed him on that. Instead, he fed him on regular dog food, which he gave to his pets normally. He indulged Tricky into playing with his pets, which helped to boost Tricky's health. In this way, he made Tricky again a very active and a well muscled dog.
Very good. So Aditya, answer is perfectly fine, but if it is for 2 marks, then you are not supposed to write this much. Okay, answer is nowhere wrong, but we need to precise this. We need to present in a much brief way for 2 marks. So basically, what I can understand through your answer that yes, James Herriot's treatment was quite interesting. First few days, he kept Tricky on liquid diets and water, and followed by some strict diet along with some physical exercise, along with some physical indulgence. Okay, so this is how he treated Tricky, and once again, Tricky was energetic. He was no more lethargic dog, and he was quite active enough. Okay, so answer is correct. Make sure that we should go with that answer, 2 marks only. Moving to the next question: was Tricky suffering from any alignment in reality? If not, then what made him inactive and lethargic?
Ma'am, can I?
Aditya Sharma.
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm.
Ma'am, no, Tricky was not suffering from any alignment in reality. It was a greed for food because he had never been known to refuse food, and also over pampering by Mrs. Pumphrey. He was overfed every day by Mrs. Pumphrey, which made him inactive and lethargic. Also, when he was kept on diet by Mr. Herriot, he showed rapid improvement.
Last sentence I didn't get you.
Ma'am, when Tricky was kept on diet by Mr. Herriot, he showed rapid improvement.
Hmm. Good, but Aditya, it seemed that you were reading.
Ma'am, I said it from
Aditya,
the book.
from the book.
Yes, ma'am.
So Answer is correct. Yes, what we say, Tricky was not at all suffering from any alignment in reality. Um, uh, it was all um, because of overindulgence of Mrs. Pumphrey, who overfed the dog, and moreover, she didn't follow the instructions given by the doctor, given by Mr. James Herriot, and as a result, the dog became inactive, lethargic. Okay, so he was not at all suffering from any alignment. Okay, moving to the next question. Briefly describe Harriet's day of content. Briefly describe Harriet's day of content. Who will say this? Very simple. Who want to give me the answer?
Ma'am, may I?
Yeah.
Ma'am, um, Tricky, when Tricky was at James Herriot's hospital, ma'am, those days were very enjoyable for Herriot, for Mr. Herriot. Ma'am, ma'am, her owner, Mrs. Pumphrey, often bought eggs, ma'am, wine, etc. For his dog's recovery. Ma'am, Mr. Herriot had kept Tricky on a diet, and hence he did not give Tricky all those food stuff. Rather, he consumed all those stuff himself. Ma'am,
Along
the,
with his partner.
yes, ma'am. Ma'am, the culmination was when ma'am, Mrs. Pumphrey bought a bottle of fine brandy, and Harriet and his partner enjoyed it with food.
Yes, good. It was actually that days of content when Mrs. Pumphrey was quite worried about Tricky's health, and who always who always made a continuous calls to keep herself updated of Tricky's well-being, and uh, finally she felt that Tricky required eggs and brandies and all, and she started giving continuous supply of brandy, wines, and egg. And it was what we say, those days were really fun and enjoying days for Mr. Herriot and his partner, because those supplies were not for Tricky. It was not given to Tricky because, being a wise doctor, he knew it very well that Tricky these are not going to do any good to Tricky, and hence Dr. Herriot and his partners consumed and enjoyed those days. So it was really the days of content. Last, do you think Tricky was enjoying his stay at the hospital?
May I?
Ma'am, may I?
May I?
First come first, Ritik.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Tricky was enjoying his stay at the hospital. There, he befriended a gang of shabby household dogs who never made him feel alone. Tricky too enjoyed their company as kept indulged him in all the activities which they did in day-to-day life, like playing, running, and eating together. Tricky, Tricky was engaged in while Tricky was engaged in these activities. He regained his physical energy levels and also became a little bit skinny and yes, from all the points we can say that Tricky was enjoying his stay at the hospital.
Yes. See, really, what happened? Ricky was really enjoying. Maybe we can say that during what we say, during first few days, he was as he was not accepted member of his community of the surgery. Uh, but with every passage of the day, he was accepted. He enjoyed. He was very much acquaintance with the surrounding. He was now in his community. He had to see the hustle and bustle to get the food. He was enjoying the competition to get the food, and all means overall he was now the accepted member of his community, living among those living among those dogs in the surgery. He was enjoying in the hospital. Earlier, he was all alone at Pomfrey's house. No doubt he was having a lavish lifestyle, but he was not enjoying there. Okay, so here we end with these two marker questions. Okay, and it will vary from person to person. So, yes, if you want to practice, the question is there here on the screen also, and it is basically these are NCRT questions. Okay, these are NCRT questions. I had kept NCRT questions purposely because why to leave NCRT questions also, we will have in a proper discussion. So tomorrow we are going to have the next chapter, that is a thief story. I will request you to go through each and every line of the story, read once, and underline if there are certain things you need to ask tomorrow. You can ask. I will show you the video related to the story. First of all, second, we will go with your queries, your problems discussion, and third, we will be going with NCRT question discussion. So in this way, we are really lucky enough that we are getting chance to read and understand each and every chapter twice. It is really we are having, and you are going to have your PT3. And regarding ASL, dear, speaking skill will be after your PT3 exam, just after your PT3. Okay, so keep on preparing this speaking one. Okay, because Abha ma'am is free after PT3 exam. Okay, so please read, and tomorrow at least don't. I told you, no, I will discuss NCRT questions. So at least tomorrow, don't give me those Google answers and already the answers from the net. Frame it, and it should be in your own language. Okay, shall we leave? Yes,
Okay,
children,
ma'am.
take care.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Those who didn't get the chance to give me the answer today, tomorrow prepare yourself. Okay, God bless you, children. Thank you.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye. Take care.